As parents, we do our best, but no one really taught us what's happening beneath the surface. The subconscious is always at work, in us and especially in our children. I am Rebecca O'Rourke and welcome you to the Suggestive Parenting podcast, a space where we can figure it out together through real tools, real awareness, and real life parenting moments. What if the biggest shift that you could make in parenting didn't start with changing your child, it started with understanding yourself? The way we respond to emotions we carry, the patterns we repeat, and the stories we've absorbed and shape the environment our children grow up in. Parenting has a way of bringing everything to the surface: our triggers, our beliefs, our patience, and even the parts of ourselves that we didn't even realize needed attention. On today's episode of Suggestive Parenting, we're diving into a powerful piece of the work. It all starts with you. Before we can teach emotional regulation, connection, communication, or confidence, we have to understand our own emotional state, subconscious patterns, and reactions. Today, I am joined by someone who helps people do exactly that. She is a fellow hypnotist, NLP practitioner, and someone who is passionate about helping people understand themselves more deeply so they can show up differently in their lives and relationships. Through hypnosis, NLP, and change work, she helps people uncover the patterns underneath their thoughts, behaviors, emotions, and relationships so that they can move from simply surviving to feeling more connected, intentional, and empowered. She's also a mom who believes that our children can become our greatest teachers, inviting us to grow, repair, soften, and become more conscious in the ways that we show up. Today, I am excited to welcome Kristyn Livermore of Westend Hypnosis. Welcome, Kristyn.
Thanks, Rebecca. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and I'm so excited about this conversation because I think that so many parents are looking for the right strategy for their children. And sometimes the biggest transformation begins with looking inward. So when we say it all starts with you, what does that actually mean for a parent who is trying their best every single day?
Yeah, and I love that you're saying like trying your best because it does, it feels like we're trying our best and we're doing as much as we can every single day. It's a lot. And I know you've been there too, and I'm a little bit more in the trenches now. Um, but it's really interesting to see it in different perspectives. And hypnosis has really helped me see what like my own childhood triggers are based on how I grew up versus like what I'm doing with my children. And similar to what you said in your intro is we learn so much about our kids, and we're for more external, we can learn so much too, which is awesome.
Yes, I my kids were my greatest teachers, absolutely. And the way that we evolve and grow as humans through the process of parenting is quite a beautiful part of life, wouldn't you agree?
Yes, totally. I never would have imagined being here when I first had kids.
So tell us a little bit about where you started and where here is.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I'm going to go back to my childhood. So, I grew up in a house, a divorced family. My parents hated each other. I was kind of the chess pieces in the puzzle for a long time. I was also my mom's partner for a long time, which, I thought that was normal. That's all I knew. So as I was, getting into relationships, getting married, having my own children, I was still trying to please my mom in a lot of the dynamics in my own household, which, I was able to break out of, which was awesome, but I didn't know I was even doing it. And then when I wasn't doing it, it was such a relief because I could actually connect with my adult self and be
Mhm.
more present for my kids and my husband at the time.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
So what was that like when you say, you were trying to please your mom? How did that show up in parenting?
At a subconscious level, I didn't even notice it until, one of our mentors, and we have similar mentors. One of our mentors pointed it out, being like, so how is it pleasing your mom? Or I think it was Scott McFall who had said, how is it sleeping with your mom? And I was like, whoa, I didn't realize I was sleeping with my mom. And I totally was because when I look back and I see it, I see that every decision I was making was to please my mom. It wasn't actually to connect with my husband or to connect with my kids. It was to please my mom.
And, we start that way at a very, young stage in our life. Those imprint years that's our only desire, is to please our parents and to get their approval and their acceptance. So, that age of 0 to 6 or whatever, around that time, that's the only goal that we have. So that's the only thing we know. And then sometimes we just take that through all of the stages of our life, keep going and going through adolescence. And sometimes that can help us in adolescence, where it might keep you out of trouble a little bit because, you think, oh, well, my mom will kill me, or I don't want to upset, right? So, there might be, like everything, it helps us in some ways and hurts us in others. And so I'm guessing that this was, the decisions you were making as a parent, you were making them feeling like a child yourself, and then doing whatever you thought your mom would approve of. And it wasn't always matching the life that you had in front of you. Is that right? Or
Yeah, that's exactly what was happening. Yeah.
yeah. So how did that impact your kids and your marriage?
Well, it was interesting because if I look back, it was that I was trying to be their friend, my kids. I was trying to more like connect with them in like a friendly way versus giving them like boundaries or some concrete frame for them to step in. Like kids thrive with boundaries. Kids thrive with knowing the edges, and
Mm-hmm.
and it's really important for them.
And they don't know them right away. Like you can say it and all you want, but they have to test it and discover those edges. And that's the, part of the adventure of parenting, we'll call it,
Yeah.
right? Because they do feel a lot safer when there's consistency and they know where their parameters are. And, as a model, as a parent, you're modeling for your kids. So, you wanted to show up to model them the world that's around us now. Yes?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
So, what was sort of the difference between then and now? Like, how is it happening now that's different?
Yeah, and the word that keeps popping up in my mind as you're saying this is like flexibility. So there's more flexibility and if I see like myself and my kids, we're separate. We're separate human beings. So like they're having their experience and I'm having my experience. And I can guide them in a way, but I can't tell them what to do. And my kids are still young, so they have rules. But I can validate their experience and then show them that they have other choices.
Hmm.
It's kind of like being the hypnotist at home.
Well, it's everywhere, right? And so, do you have kids in sports?
Yes, yeah. So I have two kids. I have two boys, 9 and 11, and the older one is in rep hockey, and the younger one is in rep baseball. So very busy.
So, do you see other parents that are living in this way, that they don't have their separate selves where they are their child? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, tons of sense. And I see it a lot in rep hockey. There's a lot of parents like living out their own dreams in their kids. And especially during tryouts, you can really see the amount of pressure that these kids are getting, even with their parents just glass or standing around the glass. Like you can feel it. And, you and I are very similar where we feel energy. And it's like walking on eggshells being in the arena. And it's really sad because the parents are doing the best they can and they don't realize that they're stuck in this trance of doing things and how they want, their kids to maybe live out some of their own dreams, which has nothing to do with their kids.
Hmm. Yeah. So when you go into these rep tryouts in the arena and around other parents, do you have some strategies that work for you to keep you in that space of your own energy and your own self, we'll say, and letting your kids have their energy and their own self?
Yeah, and that's a really good point. And I don't think I realized I had a strategy until recently. I think you and I were talking about this. So first off, I always check with myself to see like where I'm at, because sometimes I just don't go. I just stay away from it and I send my husband because he's better. He puts his AirPods in. He's good at ignoring it.
Okay. Awesome. So he has his
And
own
then
strategies.
exactly, exactly. And then sometimes I'll go and I'll anchor myself with people that make me feel good. So I'll sit around with moms who like can laugh with me, can make jokes, and it's a really light conversation. And usually most of the parents are looking at us because we're laughing the whole time. And
Mhm.
they kind of get a little pissed off, but we're like, hopefully
Yeah.
eventually they'll join in.
Yeah. So you and I know what anchors are, but explain to the listeners what you mean by anchoring yourself to someone.
Yeah, that's a great point. So, an anchor is something that you can shift your mood. So, there's a couple moms on the team that, I can bounce some jokes off and they'll just laugh with me and we'll have so much fun. So, an anchor is something that can shift your mood. So, it's like, driving past that old high school when you went to that school and then all of those memories just flood back. So, based on which parent I have good anchors with throughout the season, I'll sit with them because my energy will shift based on who I'm sitting beside. So, yeah, it's really cool because then I can shift my mood while being in a space where it still feels a little bit uncomfortable, but I can have more control over my mood in that situation.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's kind of like when you first show up, you navigate the room and you get a read of the room, and then you sort of go to the place that gives you the mood that you want to have, and you anchor yourself in that mood in with those people, so that every time you come to those people in that place, that it kind of recreates that same mood for you, which is laughter and humor and lightness. So yeah, that's a great strategy and a great way to interact with sports with our kids, because they're having their own experience, and they're learning all kinds of things that are outside of what we're teaching. Right. So giving them that opportunity to have that learning outside of us is a really awesome, loving thing that we can do for them.
Yeah, yeah. And I love that you just letting them have their own experience because it's their own experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, tell us a little bit about how you are helping clients, and maybe parents. I see you're in your office, and in the background, you've got some of your kids' artwork and things like that on display. That's really awesome. So, tell us a little bit about the work that you do and how you're helping people and families.
Yeah, that's a great question. And so this artwork is another example of my anchors. So it's kind of cool because I'm a very visual person. So having these visual artworks, especially like behind me on a screen, it anchors just this playfulness, this funness, like when my kids are being creative. So how I'm helping people is, so I lost 100 pounds with hypnosis. So I tend to attract a lot of weight loss clients, just because I have been there, I've done it. I tend to attract a lot of moms who have lost themselves in, transition of motherhood. And it's funny because even before I got into hypnosis and NLP, I didn't realize there was another way of doing this. And it's a really nice relief to know that you have options and you can add things and resources and ways of doing things to life. And there's so many awesome modalities in the world right now, but I truly feel very grateful to be able to practice hypnosis and NLP and teach people how to get into their senses and more external because really that's a game changer.
Yeah. And so you're kind of a little bit down the road in parenting. So your kids are a little bit older, so I'm sure you've had tons of experiences where you've had to navigate your moods, attitudes, and beliefs through feelings of stress and overwhelm, and the real experience of parenting. Yeah. So, tell us a little bit about, since you've been a hypnotist and an NLP practitioner, how does that help you in parenting?
Yeah, it specifically helps me be more grounded in my own skin. And also, it separates me and my kids. So I can have a grounded place, like I can have an anchor of being grounded. And then, no matter what my kid's going through, whichever kid, I can sit and observe. And, the visual that's coming up is like, when someone's drowning, instead of jumping in with them and drowning myself as well, I'm sending them a floaty and making sure I can stay stable on the ground from the outside. And that's been like the biggest shift for me because when I first had kids, I would jump in with them and
Hmm.
I would be a hot mess with them. And that wasn't helpful for anyone.
Yeah, for sure. So, do you have some specific strategies that help you achieve that when things are, let's say, sinking?
Yeah, yeah, which it happens, right? Life sinks. I tend to look up a lot more, so I tend to go visual a lot more to get myself out of an emotion. I also allow an emotion to pass through me a lot more, where before I used to fight it because I wanted to get out of it. My younger son has been diagnosed with ADHD and a bit of an emotional roller coaster right now, and I kind of just ride the wave with him. And seeing the difference of like just being there with him. And I think Tree had actually mentioned this to me recently, because I used to just sit in his room while he was going through stuff and he'd throw stuff at me and call me every name in the book. And I would personally take offense to it. So now I'm imagining that I'm like bubbled in this like bubble of love and I'm sending him tons of love. And then while he's going through his own stuff, sometimes if I feel okay to do so, I'll lie on top of him to have that like human connection and he slows down.
Like a weighted blanket.
Exactly. Exactly. Where before I never even wouldn't have even thought about that as an option. So
Yeah.
that's some of the things that I ground. My older son, Wilfred, he is a very kinesthetic kid, a very big team player. So I just touch him, like I touch his shoulder. And sometimes he'll like brush me off, but I'll still go back and touch his shoulder. And then eventually he'll just leave my hand there.
Hmm.
So it to me, what's really important that I've learned is I've been able to ground myself and then help ground them as well without words.
Yeah, awesome. And so just to rewind a little bit, Tree is our mentor, Tree Ride. And she wrote a book called I'll Do It Myself, Damn It, Signed Your Nervous System. It's a great resource. You can check that out. And Tree has also done the foreword to my book. So she's an amazing mentor and a great resource for us. Now, can you teach the listeners a little bit about what it means to notice if your kids are visual or audio or kinesthetic, or how that you describe one being more kinesthetic and you can use more physical touch to support that child. So how does that transpire to parents that have never heard this before?
Yeah, and that's an awesome point. So, people who are visual tend to look up and they also tend to talk really quickly. Like I'm super visual, so you hear me like speed up really quickly because
Because a
that's
picture is worth 1,000 words, and I got to speak it so fast so that I can get the picture out into the world.
exactly. I feel like you're speaking my language now, Rebecca. Yes, exactly. But I'm also super kinesthetic. So kinesthetic is a lot of like feelings. We tend to look down. We tend to say words like I feel, or we're just more in our feelings. And
Mhm.
auditory is more in words, which is not my strength. And actually, it's funny because my husband is more auditory, which is probably makes sense a lot of our disconnect.
And they say things like, I hear ya.
I hear ya. Yeah, yeah.
And that makes sense that he puts his ear pods in when he goes to the arena and turns on some kind of music as part of his strategy or a podcast or something.
Yes, exactly. And he's always listening to every word I say. And because I talk so quickly, being visually, he's like, okay, slow down.
Do you have pets, Kristen?
No, I don't have any pets.
Okay, because this does extend into the pets in our family as well, where they can be audio, visual, or kinesthetic. And when we notice that about them, it can change the way that we interact with them so that it's closer to how they're experiencing their world rather than how we're experiencing our world, like you were saying. So to stay really grounded, like you do, in how we need to see things or hear things or move through things, And then to also have honor and respect for the people in our family and how they need to hear things, see things, and grow through things. And to keep those separate so that everybody's getting what they need. When I worked for the school board, there was this controversial saying. Some people hated it and some people loved it. It was sameness is fairness is not sameness. Okay.
Okay.
And I like that because, we worked with special needs students and we believe that because different kids have different needs and different parents have different needs and we all have different models of the world and we all have different ways of interacting with information. And so to give everybody the exact same thing across the board doesn't actually work, does it?
Yeah, it doesn't at all.
No. And so we lose a lot of people that way. So
Mhm.
you and I, and trained in what we do, we're really trying to look at what is the model of the world of the person in front of us, and how do they need to see, hear, and experience things so that they can make shifts in their nervous system or their life or their habits or their beliefs or whatever the case may be. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, cool. So, is there any advice that you would give to parents who are learning how to coach their kids' subconscious mind and their own so that they can really look at this idea that parenting comes from taking care of yourself first? And how do you manage, sometimes a lot of parents are in shame or guilt, or they think that they're supposed to sacrifice themselves to be a good person. So, what advice or strategies would you give to those parents?
Yeah, honestly, and what really pops out from what you've said as well is like it all starts with you. So all we can truly do is we're only responsible for ourselves. And, we talked a little bit about modeling as well. And when we take care of ourselves, we model for our children how to take care of themselves as well. Um, and I don't know, I remember as a kid, like my grandparents and my parents being like, do as I say, not as I do.
I'm sure many of us have heard that, especially the older the generation is, the more likely you've heard that.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, I would just model what my parents were doing at a subconscious level, even though they didn't mean for me to turn out just the way they were doing things. I'm sure they wanted me to have a great life. And it goes back to it all starts with you. So, how can you change? How can you, get what you want? What does happiness look like for you? And I love that you put it on the table that, we tend to, take care of other people and then go into resentment, guilt, and shame. And I feel like that's where I lived for a lot of my life. And that was a choice. And now it's a choice not to live there as much. And it's a choice to step out of it, to be the fly on the wall or to be the alien from outer space or to even see it through your eyes in my perspective of like what I'm going through or what's happening in my family dynamic. So it's a choice to shift your perspective and to reframe things and to get guidance through it. And I think that's awesome that, there's so many awesome hypnotists and NLP practitioners like you and I and Tree and Scott and so many more within the Master Hypnosis Society.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah. So a couple of important points that I think that have really come up is this generational thing, like we were just talking about. The older you are, the more likely you've heard that, right? And the fact that you really started out parenting with this want to please your mom, and so how we look at that is when we look back, and as generations get older and older and older, the beliefs are different, right? The beliefs are around all these expectations around being domestic and things like that. So then when we bring we're going to say old fashioned because they're from our mothers, our grandmothers, our great grandmothers, and we're trying to please them, then we're trying to please a model of the world that doesn't actually exist anymore.
mhm.
And it doesn't come as a surprise that we're not able to please when that model of the world doesn't exist anymore. So it really is this idea of maturity, right? And maturity is based on NLP. Who said this again? Maturity is the ability to deal with frustrated desire alone. It's a
Fritz Pearls.
Was it? Yes, Fritz Perls. It's a very important NLP concept, right? And this idea of maturity as a parent is the ability to deal with frustrated desire alone, meaning not as a daughter, not as a wife, not as but to be able to deal with it alone. Okay, and to do that resourcefully. So
Mhm.
I think that it's so important for us to do the healing that it takes. You and I do something called Ho'oponopono, which is really amazing, and that helps people sort of release old patterns and forgive old situations. And sometimes we're weighed down by what happened in our past and what happened in our childhood, and none of our parents had it all figured out. That's for sure, right? They all made mistakes. So we've got to have some tools and strategies to move past that and let that go, so that we can step into the most elevated parent that we can, which is individual, right? And taking care of yourself is something that I know that I've deeply had to learn over my process of parenting, because when I raised my kids, we didn't have much. We didn't have much money. I was a single mom, and I can remember times where I could afford to feed the kids and not necessarily myself. And so I would go without, and I would go without, and then what happens when you show up hangry? Well, you're not going to get very far that way. So, you live and you learn. And so I graciously see that this is part of the parenting journey for everyone. And I'm so grateful to have you and guests show up on this and really, add some human nature to the way that we experience our thoughts, moods, attitudes, emotions, and the beliefs that keep coming forward. Yeah, absolutely. So, if there's anyone that's listening that feels stuck in a pattern that they don't want to repeat, what is one place that you think they can begin?
Reaching out for a free screening with you.
Yeah, or you? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Anywhere. Um, and you know, a- and I think I always go back to like it doesn't have to be like this forever. Maybe just be real with yourself. Like imagine your future like this forever. Is that okay with you? Or is that something you want to change? And I think sometimes that hard truth is where you start looking for other options.
Yeah. And you mentioned perspective, which is a really important thing to touch on. And I did do a chapter in the book because I think it's very, very important. And it's in the beginning of the book because this is the first step, right? Is coming to who you are, being in a grounded place, taking care of your needs so that you can then be a more connected, grounded, parent that sees what your kid needs. So you and I, when we do our hypnosis trainings, which we do lots of them over and over and over again, and Tree is such an amazing teacher, but we have also had many teachers over the years that have come in from Florida. You mentioned Scott McFall, and Robbie Spear Miller, who was our old mentor that owned Hypnosis Training Canada. So in all of our trainings and every technique that we're teaching and learning, we've always done it in a pod. And the pods always have three people, which is the practitioner, the client, and the observer. And there's three different perspectives. So we go through the same technique three different times, and you get to play each role, whether you're trying the technique as the observer or then the practitioner or the client. And so every time that you go through each role, there's different learning in each one, is there not?
Mhm.
And have you noticed how, there's probably a role in all of that you prefer? Is there one of the three that you prefer?
Yeah, I always prefer the observer because I can see it without any pressure. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I would tend to agree a little bit, exactly for the same reason, right? It's just like, oh, I get to be curious and just take it in, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't become about us or needing to get it right or needing to do a good job. It just becomes about curiosity and learning.
Mhm.
So I think that's probably, and we look at this in parenting, we have, the parent role, and then we have like the child role, and then we have the observer role. And we are all three. We are a parent and we are someone's child, and we can become the observer of that. And how that feels in our nervous system and the curiosity of learning, what our family needs, what our kids need, what our parents are going through at the stage of life that they're at, so that we can have that observation with curiosity and learning, instead of feeling like I have to do something about this right away, or it's my job to get this done, or right, because through life it's all learning. That's all we're here to do. Would you agree?
Yeah, totally. And something that I love about what you're talking about is like it's like learning, having the experience, learning, having the experience. And something that we often say is there's no such thing as failure, there's only feedback. So with every experience, you're learning something different too, and you can, shift or change something and then have a new experience, which is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that saying, there's no such thing as failure, there's only feedback. It also comes from NLP. And in parenting, it's very true, because we make mistakes. That's part of the whole parenting experience. And we can make mistakes, and that be totally good to teach our kids that it's okay to make mistakes. It's a good opportunity and teaching moment to say, "Oh, I was wrong. No big deal, right? Who cares?"
Yeah.
And then repair and connect, and then show them. So it's like modeling, what is it like to be a human being, and as we're learning and growing and evolving with our children, we have to also have the ability to show them that human side, so that they can feel permission to have that human side themselves. So, saying I'm sorry, I'm not suggesting that you bawl your eyes out in front of your kids, but to show them that you are human and you have emotion, and that we move through the emotion, and that's okay. And that's part of the way that it is. So, yes, absolutely. I think that there is no such thing as failure, there is only feedback. And every opportunity, if you're taking this perspective of an observer with curiosity, then it's so much easier for us to see what needs to be done, and then come back to connection again, and not get caught up in the pressure or the right and wrong of things.
Yeah, we do a lot of dance parties at our house.
Ah, I love it. Yes.
Yeah, it just shakes it all out. And it's interesting as you're saying all three of those roles, I kind of shift between all three of those very often, depending on what needs to change, which is so cool.
Tell us more.
Yeah, well, even like as you're saying that, I'm thinking like, hey, how do I become the hypnotist? How do I become the client? How does that look? And sometimes, when the shit is hitting the fan, sorry, I'm not allowed to swear,
Oh
but
no, it
when
hits the fan. It does.
it does, right? And when the shit is hitting the fan, sometimes as an observer, you step into the hypnotist role or the practitioner role and you just put a song on. And then it shifts the whole mood. And then all of us are clients because we're just moving our body. And it's so interesting that you're really just moving positions and taking different perspectives. And it is definitely useful for me to move my body as well.
Yes, yes. And we know that when we are where we need to be, it's so much easier to guide our kids there, because kids they read energy too. Dogs read energy. Like, it's just the way it is. And so when we can't get ourselves out of a mood or a state of mind, then we can't expect our kids to do the same. So put doing whatever we need to do for us sometimes in that moment, and just getting everybody on board, knowing that if that's what's going to get us to where we need to be, it's likely to help them. And when we are in that grounded state of mind, we can handle anything really from that place. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's so true. I just actually recently saw a reel on Instagram and it was of a mom just like putting on music and dancing, and her daughter behind her was actually going to the cupboard to soothe herself with food.
Mm.
And the mom just kept dancing and like shaking it out. And then eventually the daughter put down the snack and came over, but she was sucking her finger, still like soothing herself. And then eventually she just let go and just started dancing with the mom. And it was such a cool visual to watch because how often are your kids going to the snack cupboard because they're in an emotional state?
Mhm.
And then we don't even realize how much that builds later in life. Like, hey, I put 100 pounds on because I used to do that all the time.
It's a great example. Yes.
Yeah.
Have you ever caught your kids doing that? I know I
Oh yeah. Oh
have.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's so cool to observe it and then know that you have some choices in that moment if it comes up, right?
Hmm. And it's really about this idea of working with your nervous system and working with your kids' nervous systems and seeing that it's the same design.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. And yes, all like to hear things differently and we have different models of the world. But when it comes to our nervous system, it really is, we need tools and strategies so that we can allow us to be in this resourceful place. Because when fight, flight, freeze, and fawn take over, well, what does that mean for our parenting skills, and what does that mean for our child, and how we cope with all of that is how our children are learning to cope with all of that, right? So
Mhm.
yeah, absolutely. So is there anything else that or anything that you would like to elaborate on before we end today's podcast?
You know what? Something that I really just would like to add is one of the biggest learnings for me was like feeling safe in connection. And sometimes as a mom, we feel like we have to do so much, or a parent, not just a mom, a dad, like there's so much, like so many tasks to get done. And I think we forget about just connecting. And that has been like the most beautiful, like I'm starting to get like emotional about it. But it has been like one of the most beautiful things that I've realized is like the simple connections with just like my kids, like that means the world to them.
Absolutely, and you too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
This really is the foundation of suggestive parenting, and it's about coming back to connection.
Yeah.
And life has its ups and downs and its sidewayses and it's but it always comes back to connection, because that's where the healing is, that's where the growth is, that's where we, like I said, we're all shifting, grooving, changing, evolving, and that's where the sweet spot is back into connection. So what a great last thing for you to leave with the listeners today. And thank you
Yeah.
for being real and honest and emotional and sharing your experiences with us, because the parenting experience is a common experience, and sometimes people can feel alone, but the truth is we're all going through similar yes, and the more that we can share the tools and strategies that help us along the way, the more empowered and supported that we can all feel, and connected as a community, as human beings.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Awesome. So, Kristen, I love this reminder that parenting isn't just about what we teach our children, it's also about what we model for them. And this really is the heart of suggestive parenting, because so much of what we communicate with our children happens beyond the words that we say. It's in our tone, our reactions, our emotional state, our patterns, and the environment that we create around them. So every time that we become more aware of ourselves, regulate our own emotions, and choose a different response, we create a different experience for our children and for our families. The goal is not perfection. The goal is awareness, connection, and the willingness to keep growing. So, what patterns, if I ask my listeners, what patterns are you carrying? What reactions are you asking for your attention right now? And what change, if you gave yourself permission to do things differently, would you make? Because when we change the way we relate to ourselves, we change the way that we relate to children. Remember, when one person shifts, the whole family system can shift. Thank you so much for joining us, Kristyn, and thank you to everyone listening to Suggestive Parenting. We'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in to our Suggestive Parenting community. You can visit the website at suggestiveparenting.com for more tools and resources.